Recent news suggests that the Phantom Shogun's Grove may be getting its very own dungeon tournament in the near future. Now, I personally expect that to be a turn attack tournament like we see for the Sand Devils Necropolis, but regardless of what form the tournament takes, hopefully this will incentivize more players to come and try out this dungeon. Now, if you've never been in the Phantom Shogun's Grove before, in today's video, I'm going to break down the fundamentals of this fight. I'm also going to talk about a little bit of theory crafting, so hopefully, regardless of where your account progression happens to stand at the moment, you can put together a team that works. Now, remember, this is a late game dungeon, so I don't expect everybody to be able to just walk up to stage 25, but it may surprise you that this is a little bit of an easier fight than, say, Sand Devils Necropolis and Iron Twins. So if you have a little bit of luck or you are a late game player, I expect you may be able to put together a relatively successful team without too much effort. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just my daily reminder to you to please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Also, if you've never left a comment on one of these videos before, why don't you try it today? See what happens. Could be fun. All right, thanks so much for the support, and let's get back to the video. Whenever you are trying to master a dungeon or a boss fight, I highly recommend coming in here and reading the in-game boss guide. These guides are fairly well written. They contain a lot of the information that you need to know. Sometimes they don't have 100% of the info that you need, but they'll have most of it. And it's just a good place to start. I know it's a big wall of text, so in today's video, I'm not going to read through this. I'm just going to give you a basic breakdown of this fight and outline the key component you have to worry about, which is basically this shade counter mechanic. So what happens is anytime you weak hit the boss, he will add counters to his shade counter. As those stacks increase, he gets stronger. He can ignore things like block damage buffs and unkillable buffs and eventually shields, and even ignore 100% of your defense if the stacks get high enough. So the major mechanic here is controlling this shade counter. That's it. That's all it comes down to. If you control it, you win. If you don't control it, you're going to lose. Now, the way that stacks get added to the shade counter is any weak hit. But the boss has the ability to place an enfeeble debuff. And he can place this multiple ways on your entire team. An enfeeble debuff means every hit will be a weak hit. So if you have an enfeeble debuff, you're kind of hosed. You're going to be adding stacks to that shade counter. However, you can also remove shade stacks. So if you have an awakened hero, you remove stacks from the shade counter, more for each additional awakened star. So if you have a 6-star awakened champion, that's going to be the best. Probably you want to avoid bringing in champions that have no stars, but there are a few that you could probably still squeeze in. For stage 25, what I found is you generally need at least 3 stars on most of your champions, preferably 4, 5, or 6 stars on as many champions as you can get. And that's it, basically. One other thing about the enfeeble debuff I guess I should explain is it's placed on the champion with the highest crit damage on your team. Crit rate doesn't apply, doesn't care about crit rate. So it could be somebody with 20% crit rate, but whoever has the most crit damage will pull the enfeeble debuff, and then it can be spread to the rest of your team. That initial debuff can't be resisted, blocked, or cleansed, but the debuff spread can be. So those can be cleansed or blocked potentially, depending on which skill. One skill can't be blocked and one skill, but both can be cleansed. It doesn't really matter. I'll show you once we get into the fight. So in order to complete this, we basically want to create an enfeeble target. We want a really high crit damage champion that we know is going to pull the enfeeble. Now, this team has 2 nukers. So Magnar is the enfeeble target. He's got the higher crit damage. In fact, his crit damage is only 1% higher, but that doesn't matter. So he's at 318, Royal Guard's at 317. You don't need this high crit damage, by the way. I just happen to have it on these 2 champions. But the higher crit damage champion will always be the enfeeble target. Now, I recommend either building a support champion with a lot of crit damage or building like an HP-based nuker with a lot of crit damage. Since that's a little bit more efficient anyway, because you're going to do more damage there. So Magnar, you can see, has almost 74,000 HP and over 3,000 defense, whereas Royal Guard, much less HP and much less defense. So I don't want him taking the hits. Magnar's more likely to survive the hits. He also has 5 Ascension Stars, so he's going to take less damage from the boss anyway, and he's going to do more damage to the boss because of those. I'm sorry, the Awakened Stars, not the Ascension Stars. The red stars. He's got 5 red stars. That's important. Now you can see here, Elva only has 2 stars, but I'm only bringing in one champion that only has 2 stars. Everybody else has 4 or 5. If I could get 6, I would bring in 6. Now the other 3 champions basically are all cleansers, healers, shielders. You know, I'm getting a strengthen buff. I'm getting increased defense. Anything that can keep my team alive is good. You do probably want a reviver. It's really nice to have a cleanser with a block debuffs buff on the same skill. So both Elva and Freya have that. But these don't need to be legendaries. You could certainly use an epic like Skathix or maybe Sanguinia. Or you can't use Doom Priest, unfortunately, because the Phantom Shogun actually blocks passive abilities. So he would block Doom Priest's heal and her cleanse. She does nothing in this fight, so don't bring her in. You need an active ability that's going to have a cleanse or a block debuff, or a heal, or a revive, or a shield, or a strengthen, or an increased defense. That's basically it. Now, the faster you can go, the better. So I do have a little bit of turn meter fill here with Freya, and then we've got the speed aura and the increased speed buff from Elva. So those are good things to have. But you could bring in a Pythion here. If you had Pythion, he'd be really good. I'm sure there are other champions that also have cleanses and revives or cleanses and heals. You want to think about any of those champions. 2 nukers. Second nuker could be Ninja, could be Newt if you have Newt, could be Coldheart, could be basically anybody. But somebody that does max HP damage is often preferable. You could bring in even Husk here, who would be strong affinity, which would be nice. But as long as it's not a weak affinity nuker, if it is a weak affinity nuker, you just want a lot of stars. So like I bring in my Newt with, he's got 6-star awakenings or blessings, whatever. He's got the 6 stars. And so I don't really care too much about bringing him in. He still just nukes out the boss really quickly. But this is a little bit more accessible of a team in terms of the nukers, at least, and Mithrala being a free champion. Again, you don't need 3 legendaries, but if you are approaching stage 25, you're probably an endgame player, and you should have somebody good who can fill these roles. So let's go ahead and start the fight. It's basically, you can see right away, the boss opens up with an enfeeble, and you can see that enfeeble debuff went to Magnar, because he's got the highest crit damage, and it can't be removed, right? It's got the yellow border, can't be removed. So right now, I don't really care about putting out a cleanse, so I can just go ahead and hit the boss, right? Now this up here is the shade counter. You can see it's at 0 right now, because nobody's weak hit. Now, nobody's going to naturally weak hit, because the boss is magic affinity here at stage 25, and everybody is either strong or neutral affinity, except for Magnar, who's always going to have an enfeeble anyway, so I don't care that he's weak affinity. So now I'm just going to go ahead and increase speed. That's why I did that, not so much for the block debuffs. And then we can go ahead and actually, let's see, where's the shield? Let's put the increased defense and shield up. And now we're going to start hitting the boss. And you can see we put up stacks there. We got stacks based on Magnar's hits. Now we're going to have Royal Guard go. You can't decrease the turn meter of the boss, but you can slow him. And Royal Guard has a slow on his A3, so that's really nice. And then you can see that did lower the stacks a little bit. We got down to 6. Now we spread the enfeeble debuff to everybody. So now we want to cleanse. So we're going to use Mithrala's cleanse. And again, Magnar's enfeeble debuff never comes down, but everybody else's does. We're at 14 stacks. That's not great. But every time we hit, we're going to be reducing those stacks unless it's Magnar. So down to 10, down to 5. Magnar's going to push it up a little bit to 6. Now we're going to do the max HP nuke from Royal Guard down to 0. And as long as we're below like 40, we're probably fine. But if you can keep it down around 10 or 15, that's really safe territory. And again, you can put commands into, you know, the team setup if you want to space out these cleanses properly. I'm just manualing here to show you the fight as it goes slowly. Let's go ahead and get a block debuffs out there and some turn meter fill. And you can see the stacks going up and down and up and down. Poisons are okay, HP burns are okay, but if the boss gets too many stacks, he'll ignore those. So basically, direct damage is the way to go in most cases. And let's just go ahead and click auto. This should work. Now, I do recommend bringing in a reviver, like I said, because if Royal Guard dies, right, he's not that tanky. I need him to come back because he's the one who's going to be doing the majority of the damage. But as you can see, Magnar can take the shots, and he seems to be doing okay. We did get a decent number of stacks there. We got up to 27. And so that could get a little dangerous, but then we're going to lower it with everybody else's hits. It's helpful to have an ally attacker sometimes. If you have an ally attacker and you have a lot of champions who have, high awakening stars, then when that ally attack goes off, you're going to drop that shade counter all the way back to 0. But you can see here it's floating in the teens or below, and it's not really that difficult. And we beat the boss. And well, we will beat the boss in just a second. There we go. Okay. So this is basically the easiest way to put together a team out of the roster that you already have. You get like 3 cleansers. That's what you need. You need 3 cleansers. You can do it with 1. You can speed tune the team and do it with 1. You can also do it with 2. You can have like an early cleanser and a late cleanser and just have them kind of swapping off. I know that Boozer has a video where he put together a team that does that. I don't want to speed tune. I don't want to speed tune for Phantom Shogun's Grove. I just want to put some champions in and brute force it. And this is the easiest way to do that. 3 cleansers, 2 of them have to provide you with some extras, right? 1 can just be a cleanser, but we have an increased speed buff here. We have a speed aura, we have a revive, we have shields, whatever. Probably I have overkill here with Freya shields on top of Mithrala shields, but it helps to have that reviver and then 2 cleansers. So again, Pytheon's a perfect choice for this. Elva's a perfect choice for this. I'm sure that there are some others as well. And then you need 2 nukers. That's it. 2 nukers, one that's going to survive that enfeeble debuff, and then the other one who's actually going to do the majority of the damage. And again, this could be Coldheart. Coldheart does a good job here. Or it could be a harder hitting champion. So now I'm going to show you my actual solution. Basically, I just want to get debuffs out there with Lydia. You can see Lydia only has 1 star. That's the one downside of this team, but I have so many stars on all of my other champions that it's not going to be a problem. Newt is going to take the enfeeble debuff, but I don't care because he's just Newt. Even his weak hits hit really hard. I have Cardiel with 6 stars, Lady Mikage with 5 stars. These ally attacks are going to allow me to remove those stacks on the shade counter because I've got so many stars, they're just going to come off. And this should be relatively quick. And again, it's not particular. I'll show you the team. I'll show you the team and the speeds and stuff. But again, it's not these stats that matter. It just sort of is the rhythm. It's a rhythm thing. You need to just cleanse at the right time and heal at the right time. Now, Cardiel is my only healer, so this is a little bit heal light. But I get away with it because I'm going fast enough. So Cardiel's at 305. Lady Mikage's at 311. You can see the HP pool is okay, but not crazy. 55k, 58k. Newt is pretty well built at 261 speed and 303% crit damage. Good defense, 5.2k. Decent HP at 4. But again, not overwhelmingly defensive stats here. Ninja, 245, 265% crit damage, 325 accuracy. Lydia's got more accuracy and more speed, 306. And she's relatively tanky, at least in HP, although her defense is on the low side. So good stats for endgame, but not overwhelming stats for endgame. And again, this type of team will work all the way up. You can start it at stage 1. Early on, you probably only need 1 cleanser because you're going to kill the boss so fast. You can go more nukers and fewer cleansers. And as you progress up, you just add in an additional cleanser and an additional cleanser until you can push all the way to 25. So let's go ahead and run this. So you can see Newt's taking the enfeeble debuff. The ally attack removes all of the stacks. Now we've got the debuffs out there. Newt's going to hit decently hard when he nukes. Ninja also does pretty well. You can see even Newt's weak hits hit pretty hard. We got up to 5 stacks, and then we just instantly remove them. The cleanse here on Cardiel is timed pretty well, so I didn't speed tune it that way. It just happened to work out with the gear that I had. And again, if we get stacks on the shade counter, they just come off right away, and it's really not that big a deal. In fact, Newt sometimes actually reduces the shade counter just because he has a 6-star awakened, blessing. And that's it. There you go. 31 seconds. Not too shabby. Yes, you need to have decent stats here at stage 25, but you don't need to have what I have, right? The more healing and cleansing and shielding and strength and buffs and all that stuff that you have, the longer the fight can go, and you can still do pretty well. But I'm preparing for what I think will be a turn attack tournament here for the Phantom Shogun's Grove. So the faster I can do it, the fewer turns I can do it, the better off I'm going to be for those tournaments. Okay, that is it for this one. Like I said, a relatively basic, quick guide. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about this method, or if you have a team composition you want to share with the community. You can also do that in the comments as well. Thanks so much for hanging out today. I have been Colred, and I will see you in another video soon.